It now gives me great pleasure to invite the Minister for Sustainability, Environment and Conservation, the Honourable Ian Hunter, to come forward to open today's event.
Well, thank you, Caroline. It just reminded me I need to be much more careful about what I say to people. I can remember I catch up with my Heritage Council from time to time just to shoot the breeze and talk through some ideas. And I can remember one meeting I said, why don't you think about tourism? And lo and behold, they have. So it's great that you've picked up that ball and you're running with it. What I might do is give you my official speech first, and then I might go off the reservation and tell you why you're really here. Because I think it's really important that we grasp the potential for heritage tourism for the future of our state, and we really need to understand why we're doing what we're doing, I think, so that we can do that better. People often make the mistake, often to me anyway, when I'm out talking to community groups, of equating heritage with old buildings, which is kind of frustrating for me because my portfolio is much broader than just old buildings. Our built environment, of course, is very important, and it's a highly visible part of our heritage. I don't think anybody actually comes to Adelaide to look at our old buildings. It's something that they love when they get here and see and enjoy, and make the thought bubble that, well, gosh, I didn't know there were so many of these old, well-preserved buildings still in the country. But I don't think they come here for that. I think they come here to see something different, something they can't see at home. And normally it's about our natural assets. But I think we can actually value add so much more by building in a package around our heritage buildings and our natural assets. It's the other places, the culture, our values, the events that we have here and the experiences that you can get in South Australia that make up completely our history and our traditions that people want to come and experience. In other words, it's the sum of our living environment, I suppose, which offers so much to so many people. And as such, I think to experience this, is the best way of doing it is actually living it, being involved in it, and not just seeing it as part of our normal tourism experience. And I think, and this is the nub of the matter really, the best way that we can protect our heritage, including our built environment, whether it's natural or cultural, is by really instilling a sense of, or love, I suppose, appreciation and ownership of these sites within our broader community. And the way to do that is to use them. We do this quite well in South Australia, but I think there's room for a lot of improvement. We were, of course, the first Australian Charter for Conservation of Places of Heritage of significance was the Burra Charter, and that was adopted in our own historic mining township of Burra in the 70s. And the state government wants to see much more value added to our special places, but we need to think about it quite differently, how we're doing it. We want to make these heritage sites something that really do capture some of the spirit of South Australia, but actually are the doorway, I suppose, into a broader experience. Now, every place tells a story about our state's history, if only we were aware of it. And so often people walk past very significant places and have no awareness of its significance in our history in this state. By packaging these places together with other experiences people come for example, our iconic Seal Bay experience on Kangaroo Island, or diving with sharks, although why anyone would want to do that is beyond me, but people do, and they spend a lot of money doing it, and that's fantastic. But we can create a stronger attraction by packaging in these other heritage values, I think. And for an example, something that occurred to us recently, think about our wonderful geological evolution in the state, represented through perhaps a museum of fossils, which is not an old fusty sort of museum built around four walls, but in fact a multi-site experience of real fossils. And you, of course, understand our World Heritage Site at the Naracoorte Caves, our only World Heritage Site at the moment, although I've offered up several to the Commonwealth Government, but they keep stonewalling me saying, we can only consider one at a time. I said, what, one for South Australia? I said, no, one for the country. I think they need a lesson in how to walk and chew gum at the same time, I think. But we have so much more to offer in our state around that. The Ediacaran fossil sites, the Nilpena heritage sites, home to some of the oldest diversified and abundant marine fauna known to science, the oldest the oldest reef in the world, it is fossilised in a way, is here in South Australia. Easy to see if you put on your hiking boots up in the Flinders. It's not a organic reef, it's actually a geological reef, but it's still the oldest reef in the world. We can lay claim to that. I think using our state's key geological landmarks, even from remarkable rocks, which gets flogged a lot because they look fantastic in a brochure, all the way up to Alpena Pound to showcase the discoveries of early explorers. But also I think what's missing often is the backdrop, the deep history of our Aboriginal dreaming stories and sacred sites, which can be packaged into these experiences together. The history and heritage of South Australia is reflected in our buildings, of course, but also more broadly, our whole landscape, the whole environment. And it is these that create a feeling of culture, a sense of place, the vibe that distinguishes us from other destinations, and I think is part of the essential foundation for our tourism strategy. We have hundreds of such places, as Caroline said, that are either open to public or part of the tourist trails already, such as our historic townships and our museums, our houses, heritage wineries, and the food experiences, and of course Adelaide Central Markets. I think our challenge is to better promote these for the future. And I think technology offers us opportunities to do this better. I'm asking or tasking my agencies, or threatening them, some will say, to get a better handle on how we might actually, instead of putting up a sign, an interpretive sign, which gets vandalised very quickly and then it's expensive to replace, let's think about technology. RF tags for your mobile devices, and it's so much more flexible and versatile. Not only can you put up the facts of the place that you're at, you can actually put up YouTube stories, Indigenous cultural stories, all interwoven together, and just broadening the experience for our tourists and indeed South Australians alike who might not know the heritage values of some of the places I walk past every single day. Today you're going to hear stories from speakers who will share their experiences. Hopefully we'll all learn and benefit from these. I have never been opposed to stealing good ideas and packaging them up and putting my name on them. That's what politicians do. And I'm very happy to take advantage of all of your brilliant ideas that will come back to me. What I'd like to think about though is this conundrum that governments have had continually. How do we actually fund our heritage programs? How do we fund the restoration programs we need for some of our key sites around the state? How do we actually refurbish these old, broken, falling down buildings that have so much value to our history? How do we actually fund the cultural stories of our Indigenous peoples? And one of the things we're working on very closely with the Kaurna Nation right now is how do we actually get the Indigenous story into the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary that my agency is building to the north of Adelaide, just north of the Dolphin Sanctuary. Fundamentally important that that story is built into what we're doing with the bird sanctuary, because it will just exponentially grow the experience of people come here to see our bird sanctuary. To get that extra added value of a cultural history as well, I think it's something we can't afford to miss. So I suggested to my council that if we're after more funds, if we want to increase our influence in this area, there's only one way of doing it, and that is to talk the language of the people who actually give us the funds, Treasury. And to do that, we need to talk about, well, how does actually history, our heritage, our old buildings, how does that actually help us drive and increase tourism experience in this state, which then adds economic uplift in terms of jobs, in terms of income, flow of money into the state. That's the language that they'll understand, and when we speak that language, we start to get successes. So today's event and the other work the council is doing with me is about changing the way that we talk to people. Too often we talk to like-minded people using exactly the same language, and it's no surprise that the circle of people we talk to shrinks, and it's always the same group of people. If we can change the way we think about history, tourism and heritage, and bundle those things together, we can talk to a wider group of people who are interested in different aspects of that, driving an increase in the tourism market. That will then naturally flow back to a bigger investment in our heritage because it's driving jobs and it's driving economic growth in the state. So that's really the off-the-reservation message. We don't need to think of heritage just for its heritage values alone, although they're very important. They enrich our cultural lives significantly. But how do we actually do better? How do we enrich the lives of people who come to South Australia for a tourism experience? How do we actually milk that for every cent it's worth for driving economic growth in this state, jobs for South Australians, and more investment into heritage? That's the message, really. I'll leave you with that because I haven't got too many ideas, and that's why I'm trying to use your brains to work this through. But I think it's crucial that we understand that we can talk to different groups at the same time about the same issues by simply tweaking our language, talking in a way that other people find interesting. Heritage values are great. Treasury love them as long as it costs them nothing. But if we can show Treasury that in fact by supporting our heritage values a little bit more, we can drive growth in the economy, jobs for South Australians, then it's that typical win-win that we all know and love. And I love Treasury when they give us money for heritage. So work very hard at it today. Come up with these ideas. I look forward to reading about them. Thank you very much, Caroline.